Good evening, folks. How's everyone doing today? Or this evening, I guess. Hello, Jeff from Strumwood Guitars. Thanks for being here. It has been quite a whirlwind the last couple of weeks, picking everything up. I don't know if you can quite see that behind me, but there is quite a gamut. For me, doing guitar repair, I'm generally here by myself in the shop with my own thoughts, which sometimes is okay, but it gets a little boring sometimes. So this has been actually kind of fun, just being able to share my boredom with you, I guess. But so tonight, I'm not really too sure what we're gonna get into. I've got a couple deadline guitars that we have to get to. I'm perhaps gonna have to do a tad bit of cleaning while we just kind of get started here. Because I do also have to spray those headstocks from the last couple of sessions. One of them came together quite nicely, and the other one needs just a little bit more kind of a darker color. So let me show you those real quick. Cable on the other side. That way I'm not fighting it. Okay, so if you remember, it's been a series of them. This will all be chopped up into something, but we've got basically two. So this is the one that came together quite nicely, actually. So that is this guy. And as you can see, there's not really much going on there, which is obviously the idea. And same thing on the front. So we've sprayed the black, and that's come together quite nicely. So now to get rid of this matte, basically I'm just going to lacquer all of this. So you kind of rough it all up, make it all look the same, and then when you start lacquering it, it's going to collect itself and kind of carry on with the same sheen. So really happy with that one. And then this is the one that we're going to kind of multitask a little bit with tonight. So for the most part, it did cover up. So that's just a fair amount of red. There's a little bit of black. We're going to do just a touch more black on it, just to see if we can kind of cover it. I'm not going to go crazy, just a couple of coats. Hope for the best, and we'll kind of see what happens in there. But it did, again, it did come together quite nicely. I was a little worried about the crack, and so I did have to fill it and come back. That's why I kind of did a couple different layers. It was a little too big for me. I didn't quite like how big of a gap it is. There is still some there. You can still kind of see it, but right angle, all that kind of stuff. And this one also turned out quite well on the top there. So this was cool to know. I mean, as I was saying earlier, that's kind of the joys of all this stuff, is we kind of try on these low risk jobs, trying to see if there's a new practice that we can do. So for me, knowing that I can actually use black CA glue, cyanoacrylate or super glue, and actually fill those large voids, it's cool. So anyway, so that's one thing I'm gonna do. I do have to clean a gun, but I think I might just load my second gun. That's kind of why I bought a second gun, because I don't like cleaning them. And then we'll spray that, and I'm just gonna kind of think about what I need to do. Like I said, I got a fair amount of deadlines actually this week. They're actually all coming up on like Saturday on the weekend. So we've got some setups, we got electronics. I don't have any structure, I don't think. I've basically said no, just because I've had a lot of people on my waiting list and so forth trying to get in. So it's been I normally work actually with the lights off, just because I don't like looking at that large pile. Lets me focus on what's on my bench or benches, rather than, oh no, I have all of this to do. So we'll just kind of tackle it. So yeah, I'm gonna set up the second bench, just as we kind of trickle in here, and then we'll kind of get to it. So all right, so we'll kind of spray this a little bit. So all I'm doing right now is I'll just spend a couple seconds and actually clean it. It's probably in the best. It's probably for the best here. And then as I dry this one out, we'll set up the second gun, and we'll just spray some black. It won't be anything too dramatic. Honestly, 3 or 4 coats, and it probably will be about as far as I go on that one before I say enough's enough. because that's the thing, you keep spraying that and then you think it's going to get better, and then all you're really doing is making that one spot or a little bit heavier, and then it just becomes more and more noticeable. So I think what I'm going to do on this one is actually spray a little bit of black alongside. So I'm kind of on the last part there. I don't really want to be doing much more paint. So I think what I'm going to do is cover the paint. I'll explain it as I'm spraying it. But I think what I'm going to do is actually bring that black up the headstock, so it's not just on that one spot, and we'll kind of darken the rest of the headstock. That way it kind of looks like it's flowing, rather than the nice clean red one. Like this one actually looks pretty solid. We didn't do any black. This is just the red. We found a good match of the red and just kind of sprayed it a couple times. Whereas this one, yeah, again, there is a little bit of black in there, and as you can see, it's starting to get quite a bit, it's starting to get quite a bit heavier when you compare the two. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of bring it up. So we'll clean and get there. So. So we'll try to snag that. So I'm just using a little bit of lacquer thinner just to kind of clean this out. I did spray it before I closed it, so I didn't leave it with wet paint, which is generally always the thing I forget to do. This is the exciting stuff, but I didn't feel like cleaning it. Normally I'm pretty good at that, so once I'm done spraying for the night, I clean it, because it doesn't take terribly long, and then you just won't have any issues when you want to use it the next time. I know actually quite a few people that won't clean their guns, whether it's an airbrush, whether it's their HLVP, so like a much larger gun, and they'll just throw some lacquer in or lacquer thinner, or whatever retardant they need, depending on what they're spraying, and then they just spray it out and go on the next batch. Gives me a little bit of anxiety, but the nice thing about an airbrush is it's quite small, so you're not really adding a whole heck of a lot. So I'm very excited for our next live seminar, or on the bench, because I am going to have a guest, which would be pretty dope. So a good buddy of mine, Marcus, he's a session guitar player. He's about to go out on the road. We're gonna just be doing a pedal board with him. So that's another thing that I do. Obviously the guitar repair, but I also do pedal board rewires, troubleshooting, custom wiring, power cables, all that kind of stuff. So that will be kind of fun. So he's gonna come in on Thursday afternoon, and we are gonna do that live. It's not a huge board that he's doing, and he's basically going to rehearsal that night, so we'll have to find out how that goes. But yeah, it'll be pretty cool. He's got some bigger ideas on that, just going on to oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it now. I had one of those boards myself. Temple Audio. Whew, that was close. I almost hurt myself. Yeah, so that'll be cool. That'll be Thursday. And then in the middle of all of the rest of the stuff that's behind me. So it's I was saying on my Instagram that the other night that it's very humbling as being a small shop like myself, and this is kind of twofold. I mean, to be completely transparent, this is actually twofold to be here. One, it's to show people that just the work, not necessarily that I do, but the work that you can do or we can do. And so I do get obviously work from people checking out my Instagram page and so forth. And I've sent some work to me. I don't do a ton of that, but I have had people send me their stuff, and we fix that accordingly, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see. I keep saying it, but the amount of people that I know, session players and studio guys, all sorts of different things, that don't actually know the basic 101s to their guitar. Myself included, when I started doing the session game, I'm also a session guitar player. I didn't do my own work. I didn't actually know how to do a setup. I didn't know how to do. I mean, obviously I could put strings on my guitar, but even that to some people is a challenge, which that's fine. That's why people like me exist. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting to kind of see that as I've grown as a guitar tech, because again, as a session player, I never actually left my guitar with anyone. That was never a thing I did. So I worked in a music store for a number of years, so there was a couple guys there that knew how to do it, and I just like give them my guitar, which is cool. That works. But it's also really nice being able to know how to do your own basic stuff. Maybe not gluing a headstock together backstage, but if you're trying to make your way through a show and figure out how to fix anything, it's definitely a great thing to do, even if you're doing the I call them the back room hacks. So putting cardboard under your acoustic saddle and things like that, where you're just trying to get through the show. It's really good knowing just kind of basic 101 on what it is that we're looking at, because then you have the ability of fixing it, getting through the show, getting through your studio session, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where my intent was originally when I even started teching, so to speak. But now it's been kind of cool, because sharing the videos and stuff and doing this kind of stuff has been cool, because a lot of people have thanked me and so forth over the years that I've been doing it, that now they feel a little bit more comfortable doing their own repairs where they wouldn't before. So anyway, that's kind of the reason why I'm doing this. And then the live thing has just been, because I'm here working, might as well just turn a camera on, and if you feel obliged to watch, then you're welcome to be here. It's very exciting to watch someone cleaning an airbrush, but it's one of those things where if you don't do it, it just clogs up and will never work for you. So we're almost done here. I just got these nozzles to do, and then I will put the other one together. So yeah, we'll just do some, we'll just do a little bit of black and just kind of spray that as we make our way through. So this will just take a second. I didn't have quite enough time to set this up before I came on, so my apologies. Just means we have to hang out for another couple of minutes here. So yeah, all I do on my gun, everyone has a bit of a different cleaning process, but all I do is I have a little jar of lacquer thinner. And I've got these nice little brushes. I actually use Q-tips in these brushes. So Q-tips I put like into the pot and along the body. So if I've sprayed or dripped or anything, I use it in there. And then I use the nice bristle brushes inside. I don't want to get any like cotton or anything caught in there, but it also does a really good job of cleaning. So it's kind of like a pipe cleaner. The first time that I did this and I took it all apart, I was a little terrified because I had no idea how it all went back together, but it's pretty easy. But yeah, I bought a second gun just because I was tired of cleaning it so frequently, so. Just put a little bit of this on the surface. Especially when you're spraying like a really heavy color, like this was a pretty dark red that I'm doing. So if I'm doing, say, a white, it's my next spray. I don't have any ambition to do that. But if I were, now all of a sudden, if you don't clean it, obviously you have this red hind kind of kicking in the background, which might not be what you're looking for. And then a little bit on this lid here. Breaks that all up. Nice. Also, the lacquer thinner. Whew, that's quite a smell. Yeah, I don't know what I'm in the mood for to fix. Like I said, I got a little bit of everything. The things I have to get done, there's actually a fair amount of electronics, so I think we might jump into some electronics. I don't have anything. The way that I normally kind of work is, I obviously I look at everything that I have, but I'm not a some techs I know, and some people that have multiple jobs in the sense of like mechanics and so forth, where they've got several things on the go at once. I know some people that can only do one at a time. Multitasking has always been a thing that I've enjoyed in really anything that I do. Not always great at it, but I enjoy doing it. So, that's promising. Cool, there we go for that. So close that up. I don't want to spill that. Definitely done that before. So I'll pass this over to the other bench. And we'll just set up the other gun. I generally take these apart and just make sure that everything is good when I'm putting them back together, as far as the airflow. So the underneath here is our airflow, so how much pressure there is, and then the back part is when you pull the trigger, it's how much spray you're actually getting out of it. So the last couple times I've used this one, this is a new one. It's the same. I don't use expensive stuff. You don't really necessarily need to. Obviously you have better control and better hardware and stuff, but I think this is I think they call it a two-way. So when I press down on the trigger is air, and when I pull back, it's pulling the spray through. So I paid a little bit more for that. The basic ones, you just basically pull the trigger and it sprays air and paint. You don't have a lot of control in it, so. Every single time I do this, I look at my gloves and my little gun and I feel as though I'm about to tattoo somebody. But I'm not. I'm not an artist. That's definitely not something I want to be doing, is anything permanent. All right. Okay, so for spraying, I'm going to do the same thing as we did in the last couple ones. So I just have a little bit of shellac, and I'm just going to kind of get away from the bench here, but a little bit of shellac into a cup, and then a couple drops of some black, basically pigment, into it, mix it up, and then we're good to go. So I'll flip you over to the other bench here. Actually, I may have to see how that's going. Hang on here before I pass over to that. I see. Yeah, okay, that's what we'll do. right, so this So this is just where I do all of my painting, is on my second bench here, and or really anything messy. I like to keep my other bench clean. I'd advise, if you are doing repairs, even if it's your own stuff, I'd advise you kind of do the same thing. But you do you. Alright, so I'm only going to need the black, so I'll put these guys away. Keep the thinner out for now. And yeah, I just have a little bit of shellac. So the same thing I've been doing on the last couple here. And in my cup that I just grabbed. Did I not grab a cup? I don't think I'm gonna have to do this a ton. So I have to be cautious of my heaters now. I got my heaters going in the shop, so very low, just kind of a general, that way it doesn't get too cold in here. 1, 2, 3, just the 3 drops. A nice rich black. Yeah, just making sure that I got a nice stretch. Would have been smarter to set my neck up first. It's okay. It's all good. It's all right. Just getting started. We're just coming into it. It's okay. We'll be fine. Not too worried. Quickly attacking it with a tack cloth, any kind of weird loose fibers or dust or whatever just comes off. Jeez, falling apart here. Yeah, I don't even know if how much of that you saw. I just see that don't even see that it's connecting here. I was just gonna say the camera that this one is, or the one that was just on, is my is an old phone. And recently, it's actually been really good. I like the view of it. I like the look of it. But that seems to not be going, which is not ideal. This is where it would be nice to have a second body in here so I can keep doing my thing and someone can be figuring that one out. But yeah, okay, here we go. All right. Well, that one might be out. All right, sorry about that. That's okay. There wasn't really anything that I was doing over on that bench. I was just trying to spray, and I don't know where the camera actually even cut out. So again, I apologize for that. But basically, the entire pot of paint that I filled up just spilled out. So I don't really know what's going on there. So far we're over like 3, but okay, okay. Before I noticed that the camera was out, I was just going to grab some paper towel and try and clean up the leaks. We had a couple leaks on the floor. They've already set, so c'est la vie. All right. Never mind. Paint. Yeah, that's been really finicky. That's actually really annoying. Mainly because I obviously try everything and make sure everything works, and it did. Now for whatever reason it's not, so... Alright. Cool. Let's make some room over here on this bench. I think what we're going to do, though, is actually get into some electronics anyway. So, like I said, it's not really the end of the world. I'll just kind of change what I'm going to do. So, I think I was going to try and figure out some sort of way to decide what I wanted to do, but this makes it easier. These are such cool guitars. Oh yeah. Give me 1 second there, I'll correct that. All of a sudden it went really dark. Something's freaking out. yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's like the worst thing that can happen when you're trying to go live, but you know what? That's half my job, is figuring out what happened live and what happened at the moment, and trying to troubleshoot it while the band's still playing on stage and all that kind of stuff, so... yeah. Anyway, whatever. You get the idea. Right? Does that work? You see a little bit better? Yeah. A little bit better. Still a little bright there, but as I was saying, these are cool little guitars. They got a lot of mojo. I love the Jazz Masters. So this particular one, what we are doing is a little bit of an easier electronics job, but we are going to be changing the pots. So Klein doesn't even actually know what's in here, I assume, because these are the soap or the P90s. We're probably going to be looking at, with the humbuckers, like a 500K would be my guess. So we are just going to switch that around to the other side. So let's get into it. The first thing I always do on this, because we are going to have to take the strings because of the pick guard is underneath the strings. And also I've never understood this, but why the pick guard goes underneath the bridge. So we are going to have to remove the bridge as well to get up inside of that. So let's do that. Pull this out. I'm just going to give it a quick measure just so I know where it's at. That way I can make sure it's back there. Woo, that is low. So that's like 2. That's 2/64. Sounds like we're in E standard, which we are. Cool. So I haven't actually done this one yet. So one of the things I want. Oh, that's another one. I don't know if you can hear that. Actually, let me see if I can hear that. I can hear it in my amp. I don't know if you can actually hear that, but there's a lot of ground noise. Oh, there you go. Just the right way that you move it. So there's a lot of ground noise in this. So what we're gonna have to do is, this particular guitar is actually also in a film studio. So there's a lot of lights and production and stuff that's happening at the same time. So obviously those lights, if they're not grounded correctly, or if everything's running on the same circuit, then it is very conducive to static electricity, which is what we're listening to. And in some cases, I've actually even seen people picking up radio stations through their guitars. All that kind of stuff is actually shielding. So that's another thing we are going to be doing to this guitar. So we're going to be taking the strings off and doing that, but we're also going to be changing the pots to the opposite of whatever's in here. I assume that these are going to be 500K. So middle position, full volume, and then the tone pot. Neck, and tone all the way down. That is really gnarly. And now we're in the bridge pickup, and then tone all the way up. So there's definitely a lot of spank there, but yeah, we're trying to go vintage kind of tone, and so what we're going to do is switch that around. So whatever's inside of that, we want to go the other way. So we were reading that their 250K pots is what's kind of in a vintage thing, which is true on the old Jazz Masters. So first things first is we will take the old strings off and do all that. This is where I do the speed montage. I have a 6-foot bench and it's still not long enough. I keep constantly hitting things. Nice. I didn't realize that until after I took the tension off. But these are actually the self-locking tuners. So there's several winds that you actually do on the inside before you can pull them out. You kind of keep winding, just hold the string, and then it will eventually pop itself out. There we go. I didn't see that at first. I don't think I did those ones. So there's a couple different versions of these these tuners. I've seen the PRS ones or actually the old PRS ones are really cool. The new ones are as well, but the old ones, you're not really fully expecting them to be locking, and then you think you've gone too far, and then all of a sudden it will actually come out, which is kind of cool. But there we are there. So I don't want to mess with these. That's my other favorite thing about these guitars is looks like we have a mastery bridge on here, which is really dope. These are great. I've installed a couple of these. They're just a really durable upgrade to your guitar. Traditionally, these are not stable bridges. And the main reason is because in this version here, it actually sits on, and this is what the Mastery does actually different, but in a Fender one, there actually is like it comes to a sharp point. And so I'm referring to the bridge right here. Yeah, or right here, I guess. Is that any better? So this point that comes up on the end, normally this comes to like a blade point, kind of like the top of a pen. And it's not quite as pronounced as this. So the whole bridge is sitting on this incredibly sharp pin point. And so what happens is with any form of movement, the whole bridge moves. And especially because everything's floating on you, you don't really have a lot of options. They're normally a little quirky as far as being a well-intonated, stable guitar, because they probably won't stay like that. Yeah, the cool thing is we're actually using flat wounds on this guitar, which is another kind of cool difference on this one. But I will chop this up and then put the 250s beside the 500s, because like I said, I believe that's what we're about to do. Or, sorry, other way around. No, what did I say? 250s versus 500s. I'm pretty sure there's going to be 250s in this. Wow. Pretty sure there's going to be 500K pots inside of this. So I always kind of do like a little makeshift, it's under my face here, but I do like a little makeshift with the screws around. It's not really the end of the world. Most of the time it's pretty good, but especially if it's a bit of a newer instrument. But on an old vintage guitar that has all sorts of quirks and different screws and stuff, I definitely will record what screw hole it came out of. That way I'm not stripping new wood, or generally in those cases, especially if it's an older guitar and it's been around for a while, someone's been tinkering inside of it and they throw a different size wood screw in it or whatever. But so yeah, the only thing we're doing on this one is changing these pots, adding the noise, cancellation if you will. So we're going to shield it, and I'll explain that when we get to the shielding. But and then putting some new strings on. So this one is kind of nice and easy. Oh, actually, no, that's the module. Oh no, that isn't. That is actually the pick guard. Always the confusing things on Jazzmasters. The Jazzmasters and Jaguars with all the extra switches and stuff, when you start taking the screw off and then you realize you're actually dropping the extra wheels and modules. Alright, ready? This is always an exciting thing. Let's see what we have on the underneath. Oh, that looks very nice. See that someone's been inside of this. Looks great though. That's nice. Nice and clean. You don't have this huge nest of wires that are bulking up, because that also adds to your noise. Because yeah, if you've got if you have this huge net, that's also what can add to kind of your antenna levels. So I'm just gonna grab a cloth to put this down. I just like to put down material underneath the pick guard so it's not just sitting on top of the finish, just so we're not scratching or doing anything that we don't need to do. So, get this in position, hopefully get the lights off the reflective material that's in there. These are actually 1 mag pots, so that's going to be quite a bit darker. So all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of double checking specs here, because what we wanted this guitar to be is close to a vintage sound. So they're not going to be a full tone difference there. So much for that. Okay, so vintage tone pots in So yeah, all I'm looking at here is the specs as far as trying to see what we're going to be looking at here. I was not expecting to see those 1 meg pots in there, actually. Let me real quick go and see what my client has said on this. I believe he said he just wants to go to the 250s. So a lot of times too, with especially in electronics, we have the fun of being able to switch it. So you can do a custom mod, you can do a split coil, you can do series, parallel, you can do all this kind of stuff. And if you don't like it, you can just replace it. So what we'll do is, like I said, I'm just pulling up the messages that we've had, my communication. I speak with everyone, and I'm just trying to see what he actually said, because he thought that they were a different value as well. So, but I believe we used the word brighter. So we actually want to get a little bit brighter. So this is the kind of stuff that you do off screen, but it's okay. We're just rolling with it. We're rolling with it. Yes, so that's what we want to do. So the 250s and a treble bleed. So cool, so we're actually trying to eliminate a lot of the higher end stuff, so there we go. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna add a treble bleed, which actually this one has as well. This does have a treble bleed. So I think all I'm going to do, I have to be honest, I think I actually may have worked on this guitar in the store. That's all things that I would do as I'm looking at that. The way that I wire up a treble bleed, the way that I do my ground, the way that I do the wiring, it's all strapped together. I don't know. Irrelevant, it's here now. So I have a bunch of treble bleeds kind of already made, and I have different values, but that kind of goes back and forth. And all that's really doing is allowing the frequencies to cut through, so when we lower our volume, the treble still goes through, meaning that when we turn down our volume, it doesn't all just go to nothing. It actually, you still get that treble to bleed through, which gives you just a little bit more flexibility. It's a little unorthodox as far as the other guitars go, but most people like the sound of that, so. And then yeah, if push comes to shove and we don't like it, that's not a problem. We'll just switch them back out. Like I said, that's kind of the fun of electronics, is it's a quick and easy way to see if you liked it. I had to tell you that I did a 4-way switch on, and I went series and parallel in that. Yeah, it was just a matter of being able to go, yeah, and then I just put the original pot back in and the original switch. So I got away from the 4, went back to the 3. It was great. All right. Cool, so what we will do, I guess, is, I want to do that first. I'm just going to pull this out because it's wrapped around my camera. As I stand over my gun, or over my my airbrush gun, I still can't believe it just leaked out the front. Can I just do this? Will that work? Yeah, sure. We can continuously hang out. Still see what I'm doing. So I do a couple different things when I have these mats going. I'll have a big one down for like underneath the pickguard, or depending on what it is that I'm doing, perhaps I wrap it in a cloth or something. And then I have another one that I use, a smaller one. So when I'm actually making my solder connections, I'm doing it over a cloth. I'm not doing it directly over the finish of the guitar. So it's a good way to make friends. So I just got my sponge wet, and I'm just letting the gun heat up. So the nice thing about, or rather what you want to be looking for when you're looking for a soldering iron, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of this, is something that has variable temperatures. So you have to go pretty hot to do ground. We'll do ground first, and then we'll be able to throw that down. A lot of times what I actually do, and while I'm heating it up, is pull the old pots out and put the new ones in, so that way I can kind of just, we're copying everything. We're not rewiring it, we're not doing anything, we're just changing the values of these pots. So we will do such. So flip that back over. Yeah, so cool little trick if you don't have it. Actually, these ones are really low. I don't know if this is even going to work on this. Nope. Work on this. I have soft pliers. I'll see if I can get it up just a touch off the pot and get underneath it. But a really cool trick that you can do so that you're not grabbing it. These are soft. They're plastic. They're not like standard. More often, oh, that actually does work. More often than not, they actually slide off just like that. So, there we go. That actually worked. And I did 0 damage to the pot, which is obviously nice, considering that it is just a piece of plastic. So I'll put those aside. But yeah, you can do a little trick with this and run it underneath and wrap it and pull it up, but I didn't get to show you that. Pots are also very loose on the pickguard too. So just a lock washer underneath on that. So we'll do the same thing. And that way we're putting back basically the same way, and then we won't have to work too hard to get it to line up. Which I'm always all for. There is a little a little tab on the side of these things that we need to break off. If you ever see those old vintage Fender pickguards, you'll see a little notch in them, and that's what this little groove goes into. But 96% of the pickguards that you're about to throw these into don't have that. It's okay. It's very easy to break off, and now they'll line up no problem. So we will lock washer. And then what I normally do is I just keep them loose because I like to spin them on the top. I'm not going to tighten them down until we're all done. So I just put them on the top so that they're not going to float around on us. These actually feel like short shaft. They might be. So, this is the excitement of electronics. It's cool though. It's chill, hanging out. Good time. Hopefully you're all having a wonderful evening. This is normally what I do until it seems like all hours of the night. Guitar repair. Take the kids to school, do the next day. I believe I have another day of this tomorrow too. Yeah, I'm really wondering if I should ask him. I definitely will when I go and drop this off. Alright, so all we're gonna do is I'm just gonna basically see if I can get this to be comfortable for me, but also something that you can see. It seems to be. Also need my sota. So yeah, all I'm gonna do is just heat it up, and then we'll put it onto the pot below it, which is the new replacement on it, and then should allow for a quick swap out. And the other nice thing too is when you have a variable gun, it doesn't take very long for it to heat up. So you can go really hot, especially when you're doing ground stuff. When you're doing ground stuff on the back of the pot, you need a lot of heat. But you don't want that much heat when you are doing just your standard connections. It's actually been a little bit since I've used my gun, so it's not transferring heat super well. It's certainly hot enough. Also fighting with it. We'll bring out this crazy contraption. Yeah, so I do a couple different things, or rather this does a couple different things. So it gives us an extra, like a helping hand, but it also can hold the pick guard, and just so that everything's not moving around on us, because if we're fighting it, it's not gonna be fun. It's not gonna be enjoyable. Come on. No, you wanna. Hot enough. Holy moly. Alright, well, let's turn that up a little bit. It's certainly hotter than I normally run that at. Possibly. Let's just pull this guy out. Again, I'm setting everything on the cloths. I'm not putting any of this directly onto the guitar. That's a pretty ridiculous move. Reach. The big thing is that if it's moving around on you, because it starts to get really warm, you can't actually pull it out. There we go. Some cold solder joints too in here, actually. It's flowing everywhere except for where we want it. Come on. Holy Toledo, that was a lot. That was a lot harder than it needed to be. Has me a little excited for the other side here, just because of how much ground is actually chilling in there. That is actually a ton of solder. Now that I'm really looking at that on this end, I think I might. And we also have this slack, I think, on all sides. So what I'll do is I'll do this little mid connection. I'll put that down. And that will allow us to kind of connect this. And then once you get hot enough, it will actually flow onto the back of the pot like it just did. And you get this nice silver connection, which is actually what you're looking for. And then you can sort of see that. All I'm looking at right now is to see if I can just kind of chop these ends. Mainly because of how much fun we just had pulling them off. I don't know if I'm going to have the same success in this one. Sometimes on these stubborn ones, the other thing that you can do is you can add just a touch of solder to it. It just kind of helps the heat move with it. But I have my doubts, actually. Certainly cold joints in there. Gross. Those two I think I'm gonna cut. Alright, so yeah, we'll just see if we can pull this off. I'd like to not have to run a new ground wire to the switch, but if that's cleaner and easier, then I'm happy to do that rather than making shift. That actually is probably one of the most common things that I see with electronics is doing the kind of the cheaper, easier way. Perhaps you don't have a wire. That's quite common. You don't actually have replacement wire. And I've seen, actually I just did one the other week that was alligator clips. So like someone just used alligator clips to make the connection rather than an actual wire. Yeah. So once you add a little bit of heat, they are certainly coming off. A little unnecessary, but anyway, it's doing the trick. So we'll do this last one, and then we can ground this pot. Sorry, I realize the camera's a little high, but a little bit. If I'm doing a ton of soldering, like if I have a whole day of soldering, actually I do have a couple of jobs, but they're just a quick connection. Normally I actually would have like a vacuum to pick up those solder fumes, because that stuff can be deadly, especially if you're doing this all day. Solder fumes are no joke. So those ones, I'm just going to cut those ones. There's a lot of extra wire there, and I'm only snipping it like very small distance. But it's also nice too, because then it gives us a nice clean, starting point. Certainly looks like, I don't know. That's the one thing I've actually been trying to, just as I'm thinking about changing pot values and what kind of different sounds it makes and so forth. That's actually one thing I've been trying to wrap around in my brain, an easy way of being able to demonstrate that. We'll kind of put it back the same way that we found it, in the sense of these two here. Everyone does their own thing first. I like to, I generally like to do ground first, because depending on what the guitar is and stuff, it's just a little bit easier to work at the higher temperatures and all that kind of stuff and just get that over with, and then you can come in and do the last part. I've also had a lot of fun conversations with people as far as, do you need to ground the pots when you have shielding on the pickguard? This is always a very entertaining conversation. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, because everyone has a bit of a different belief, as you would imagine. So some people believe that it's a good thing, some people think that it's not. I personally think it is a nice thing, but you can hear when it's gone too far. And then the other part of that is, as well, is if you're not careful and you have these big blobs of solder and stuff, like as you can see, not quite actually. Can't zoom in on this camera, unfortunately, but as far as the clean pickup, we've got this nice little small dot sitting on top of solder. We don't have this huge clump, which is what's on the other one. And that kind of stuff is what starts adding noise, and we're talking in micro levels, but when you start multiplying that over everything, especially something like a Jazzmaster or Jaguar, where you have all these extra auxiliary switches and stuff, you really can start adding noise unnecessarily. So when you're doing this nice and clean and doing it methodically, and the less amount of cable you can get through all of this, then that's why you're good to go. That's kind of why I chopped these off. Even though we only took off a small section, it's less cable that's in there that we don't need. So we'll throw this one in next. I used to, unfortunately I have to admit, but I used to, when I was doing, especially the ground connections, is I would grab, and maybe this is from, excuse me, from doing like home electronics and stuff, but I would grab all of them, kind of like what you would in your light switch, and you have like a barrette sitting in the back. I would actually do that with my ground wires. I would turn it into this massive knot of cable, and it's really not necessary. These are nice little connections, and I actually come back with my cutters and I'll actually clean off the edges, and just really nice clean parts. That's a huge part of getting good tone. Overlooked by many. Whew. Whew. Might as well cut that while I'm standing right here thinking of it. All right, so comparing these, oh, and I got this one here too. Is this on the other pot, or was this on? No. This one I'm going to keep a little bit longer just because of the style of what this is. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm smart about this. Because on these volume pots, what you're actually doing is grounding that last tab. Let's see if I can get this a little bit cleaner. So I'm just heating up the solder, trying to see if I can get a twist out of this. Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to feed this into the ground. So rather than having this huge blob, which this one is, this one's bent back and there's just this huge blob of solder, I'm actually going to get it into the switch and then mount it to the bridge. So I'm connectively connecting this tab to ground, but I'm also not adding all this solder or unnecessary solder. Call me a perfectionist, whatever. I'm just gonna bend that back just a touch more. It's another really big rookie mistake. You see this on a wiring diagram or whatever, and it, you know, pull it back, bend it to pad. But what also happens is that not all of your pots have that ability. They don't all have long tabs. So I've seen people kind of fill the gap, so to speak, with just an immense amount of solder, which is, again, less than ideal. And then this actually might have enough solder to go into this. Come back when we have a lower temperature. Right now it's just kind of coming down the slot. All right, so just double checking. Like I said, I'm comparing this to what we're doing. We have these, that's just our standard. That's the treble pleat in the middle. That's coming from our master. That's that. And then we've got a tone going on to the side here. So what I like to do is, I personally am a big fan of the Sprague caps, so we'll just do that. We'll go with a nice orange cap. Just because you can hear the orange tone. Of course, I'm kidding, but I am in no means the guy to be sniffing corks, if you will, as far as what sounds better, a cap or cap being. I'll show you the difference here. Without melting my headphones. This is a pretty hot topic, so probably gonna be ruffling some feathers here. Oh my gosh. Right, cool, good, awesome, thank you. That's very helpful. Very, very helpful. So these are the tone caps that everyone generally looks at. So this is our kind of our standard orange Sprague cap that a lot of people know about. And then we've got your disc cap. So, and some people like the difference. Some people can say they can hear the difference. I'm not gonna start going into that because personally I don't think I notice a difference, but I've never really paid that much attention. And that's why I was kind of saying earlier, one thing I'd really like to do is be able to get the same guitar and somehow be able to troubleshoot all that and actually see if we can do it. I'm sure if we like ran it in through like Pro Tools or like a DAW, like some sort of audio software, I'm sure we would actually be able to see the difference, and I'm sure that it's been done. But at the end of the day, we're both playing a G chord, so I don't know if you're really noticing a huge difference there. So because I'm still in ground mode, I'm just going to hit ground on this tab, and then I can turn down the temperature. My iron, we'll do the rest of the connections, and then as far as all the wiring goes, this is done. I just have a couple more to do. The ground actually is the hardest because you're typically putting it onto the back of the guitar or of the pot, and some people will not do it correctly in the sense that they, scratch the back, like take sandpaper, because that's the only way you can apply it. Just add a little bit more heat. It heats up the back pretty quick, and then you can do just a dab again. You're just doing enough to cover the lead. You don't need this huge, crazy mound of solder in there. Just enough to kind of hold it. And when you get the top of the pot hot enough, it just flows, and then you're done. So soldering is not necessarily challenging per se, but it's challenging to get a really nice clean solder joint. That just comes with practice. As anything. Okay, we are at the point now where we are just doing our last connections, so that's cool. So I'm going to turn this down to a little bit more of a moderate temperature. I'll just give that a second. Hopefully everyone is enjoying. Yeah, this will actually be cool. This is actually the first time that I've ever done this in the sense of being able to record it. And I don't know how the recording, and that's actually what I started to say originally. That's one thing I want to do. I just have like a little basic Line 6 amp on my bench. I do have a deluxe and stuff underneath my bench when you're really giving it a test. But as far as just making sure signals and whatever, that works just fine. But anyway, as far as getting that into like a decent feed, I actually don't know what that sounds like on the camera. I've got a condenser mic here, so I'm sure you probably heard that. But anyway, being able to really hear the difference between, in this case, a 1 meg pot and a 250K pot. So that'll be kind of interesting. The nerdy guitar tech nerd / video editor after all this. That'll be kind of cool. And just a quick shout out to Harris. I know he's watching this, but having the ability of having these royalty-free music just playing in the background. This is normally kind of what I'm doing. Obviously, I can play whatever I want when I'm in my shop, but while I'm broadcasting and stuff like that, I need to have something, and I like to have the vibe. So it's cool that what he's doing for streamers and stuff. I'm obviously at no means in the pro category, but it's just in general, I think it's a really cool thing that he's doing. Playing stream beats. Actually, I should probably think about that. Okay, so we're running the other one. Yeah. I'm just going to heat this one up because this is, again, the cabling coming from This is my least favorite. When that's all like wrapped around, that's basically what I'm trying to deal with right now. It's all wrapped around the pot and stuff. I think I might be able to have enough slack. If not, then we're running a new wire. As we're about to find out. Barely. As with anything, especially in, I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm just gonna say the biggest thing is having the right tools. Holy moly, what a difference that makes. It's definitely not a cheap craft, needing all of these tools, but having the one tool that works for when you're doing a left-handed guitar upside down just makes the job so much easier. If you could just come out, that would be great. It's like wrapped around the back and back through. Very unnecessary. That's crazy. I'll also quite warm. Okay, so there is our treble bleed. Yeah, so these are just it's just a cap and a resistor that sits over the two lugs. There's all sorts of different values depending on, I guess, your feelings, but just a little snippet. Actually, I'm gonna go with white because we are going with tone. So exciting. So exciting. All of this soldering. Run this up over it as well, just give us a little bit of a cleaner run. Actually, do I have enough to just get a new wire? Yes, I do. So let's just do that. Not trying to cram in old solder or, more importantly, have a weak connection. So a couple of the wires broke off or whatever. Let's get a nice clean section of. Run it through on this side, and then when we zap it all back together, it'll be nice and clean. All right, so this is master out going into the volume pot, and the last thing we need to do is our volume pot to our tone, and then we are done. The wiring. I prefer the jobs when you like know what you're doing. I know that sounds silly, but I'm just meaning like I call electronics, especially when it's someone says like, this is the problem that I'm having when I'm playing on stage and I do this. I call it chasing gremlins, and those are like the worst jobs. I dislike getting those the most because you basically have to emulate that exactly. And you're not really too sure what the problem is. Obviously, I've peeked under the hoods of a fair amount of guitars that you start to get kind of an idea of what might be the case when you hear whatever it is that you're hearing. But as far as what the problem is, but I just mean like when you're having to diagnose an issue that they're not really too sure when or how it gets to that point, I think it's very challenging. All right, so. One thing I like about this pull through or pull back cloth is that you can pull it back, make your connection, and then pull the cloth back up to the connection. So like you can bunch it all up and then put it back. That's a really cool. This kind of gives you all the shielding that you need, you know? And then I also, I actually didn't pre-tin these lugs, not on purpose. I actually forgot, to be honest. But Normally the ones that I have a bunch going into, such as like the volume pot. So we've got the master out coming from the on-off going into the volume. You will then have also a tone bleed and then or a treble bleed, and then we also have that going to the tone. I actually a lot of times will leave that empty so I can fill all the wires in and then solder it rather than pre-tin it, so I'm filling it with solder. It just makes it a little bit easier sometimes. But most of the time I do actually pre-tin. I just plumb forgot. My apologies. Cool, all right, well, that is that. I'm very curious to hear the difference, but we won't worry about that right now, because I'm not there yet. Okay, so we've got, just looking at the ones that we've pulled out, I am obviously gonna keep these. We're not gonna throw them out. We'll just put them back in the bag, because perhaps he wants to go back to that. But, so we got a treble bleed. So I've done basically the same treble bleed, it's just new. And then all the ground going to that, and then we have a cap. So I've just changed the cap on this end, so we've gone to an orange cap rather than the Sprague cap. But everything else is the same, wiring's all the same. We weren't changing any of that, we just wanted to change the value, so that is a job done. So now, the next thing that we can look at, and this one might make things a little interesting, but I'll explain that in just a second. Because now we are on to shielding. Now shielding is when you flip over your pick guard and you actually see this. Obviously it's turning into a beacon on the cameras, but when this is around the pickups and all that kind of stuff, you actually want this to be filled in. You see that it's connecting here as well as in here. And if I have my multimeter, that is one of the reasons why I grabbed it. Okay, so I'm just gonna turn the gun off. We don't need the gun. Actually, before we go crazy and turn it all off and clean up, we make sure we have signal. I've never done that before. Just finishing up the electronics here on this guy, and make sure we have. I have just like a quarter that I use for signal here. Signal there, signal there. When I use the volume, it's done. So it's definitely, I've got headphones on, I've got music going, but I'm just listening to the amp. It is much darker than what we're looking at. So he was saying originally that the issue was that the guitar was too bright. So we've succeeded doing that, that's for sure. And also this one, again, has the flat wounds on there. So that's going to give us a little bit of a different tone originally, because if you're looking at a round on, it's very jazz-esque. So it just kind of gives you a little bit more earthy, woody kind of tone rather than a super bright in your face. So when you're using round wounds and then you start changing the pots out, you get a totally different sound on your guitar. And that's actually the really cool thing. And like I said, that's the neat thing about changing your electronics around, is that we have the ability of dramatically changing our tone with spending, you know, 10 bucks on parts or whatever, 20 bucks on parts. My $300 an hour. Obviously I'm kidding, but yeah, it's a nice and easy thing to do. So if you're at home and you've got something and you want to add a mod, especially the last couple of years, obviously everyone's had some extra time on their hands, so they've kind of taken it onto themselves to add a new switch or do a kill switch or whatever. It's really basic stuff, but I like how much of a difference changing your electronics can be. Whether in this case we're just changing the values of the pot, it sounds quite a bit different, but changing the pickups or changing to a push-pull, and now you're getting different elements coming out of your guitar. It's actually a really cool thing. So just kind of cleaning up as we go here, putting these back in, because we'll get these back to him, and then if he does change his mind, we want to go back, no problem. I don't think so though. If we're complaining that this tone was too bright, and like I said, I got headphones and music going in my ears and I can hear that it's quite a bit darker. So that's exactly what we're kind of looking for in that sense. So we'll just put that aside, and I'm just gonna clean up just a touch. Put the gun out the way. And then we will look at the shielding. This can actually be a really terrifying thing if you have OCD, because what we're gonna do is essentially apply a sticker. Now there's a couple different ways you can do that. Like I said, when we're looking at the back of the pick guard, this foil is really what you want to be looking at. So on the pick guard, generally, it's going to be mostly wrapped in the tin foil, And then on the inside of the cavity of the guitar, it's kind of the same thing. So on this side we got nothing. So if we move this, you can kind of see one of two things. You can see that this is actually like a black paint, and I actually was making space to grab my multimeter. Because now what you can do is see if it's conductive. So a multimeter is a huge tool to have in your shop for several reasons, but it's a great way of seeing if you have signal going to something, if you have ground. For example, when we're grounding everything, we want to make sure that it all connects. When the strings are on the guitar, your tuner should connect to your output jack kind of thing. So most of them will actually have a little switch that I'm on. So right now I'm on, oh, that might be a little bright on this side. So right now you can see it's right here, and it's just like a little speaker sign. Maybe it's a little bit easier on this one. No, sorry, it's the LED lights that are that I'm underneath here for on my bench. But basically, when you have continuity, you can actually hear that. So when I'm completing a connection, I know that I have continuity. And honestly, even if you don't know how to read all the meters and test your 9-volt batteries that are in your acoustic guitars or in your active pickups, or something along those lines, it's a great way of actually seeing if, when we flip this over, if we have, of course it's commonly, come on, to see if it's actually connecting. So you can actually see where that is. I'll just turn the music down for a minute so we can hear what's going on. So if we moving that around, so obviously that means that the wiring that's coming from one side to the other, we're actually connected, which is what we want to hear. You also want to be seeing a ground coming from our bridge. So the bridge is actually a really common thing. Obviously that's where the strings connect. So from the bridge to that. So that's interesting. But I think it's actually coming out of this, which I can't see. Is it this one? Or is it this one? There it is. So but again, I'm just double checking, going through all of that, trying to find where the connection is, because now when the bridge is connected into the pots, the strings are going over that, so forth. You are actually making that connection. So, but that's good. This is obviously the time to be doing it, and that's what all these wires are doing. So all I'm doing at this moment is seeing if this is conductive. They do make a conductive paint. It's an absolute mess to work with. I'm not a huge fan of it personally, but I'm just trying to see if it is conductive inside, and it is not. So this one is a little dicey. Sorry, I shouldn't say dicey. This one is a little entertaining because trying to apply a sticker to all of these little curves and stuff is definitely not the easiest thing to do. Let's get this out of the way too. Give ourselves some space. All right, so if we were to kind of get you off. Actually, I'm just gonna cut that. I will put a new one on when we're wrapping it all up, because it looks like that will give me clearance I need, with the exception of this one ground. And of course, it's the one that we tied into the volume pot on there. Actually, let's go this way. Yeah, so these sections obviously are okay. And then when this sits on top, it's being wrapped around that. The idea is, or the concept of what we're trying to do when we're shielding, is to actually have it be like an enclosed box. If it's open and you have all of these kind of open spaces, kind of what we're dealing with right here, you're not going to have the best interference. And then you generally have a little bit coming up on the lip, coming on the outside of that. That's going to allow us to connect it all together. So the inside all the way down is wrapped, and then there's a little lip that comes along the edge, which then connects with the tinfoil underneath the pickguard, and now it all goes out and through the ground, which is what we're looking for. They're shielding on that side. Shielding on this side. I'm not 100% sure if I have that much actually. So oh yeah, right. I forgot that I just bought a huge new roll of it. All right, that feels a little bit better. I had my sweater on and the toque and stuff. It was a little chilly in here, and I actually just set up my second heater. I've got a couple oil heaters in here, and then they're on a very moderate temperature. They're not hot at all. Because I can't talk to you about making sure you have your guitars humidified if I don't do it myself. Yeah, so basically what this stuff is it's the same kind of concept. So this is actually a copper roll. The stuff is not cheap, but it is a much cleaner install in my opinion. And it works really well. It actually takes solder as well. So, because some of these are not double-sided, meaning that if you were to line this on the inside and then wrap them over, that the continuity doesn't continue from piece to piece. So you actually need to solder like a little tab. This stuff does not need to do that. However, I have worked with the stuff and it's awful because you're trying to actually like solder on top of it, and all you're really doing is creating like a jump wire, but it doesn't stick very well, like to the same aspect as like sticking on the back of a pot. So yeah, so it's always kind of the thing, and really there's really only one way to get to it, and that's just kind of start doing it. But I'm trying to determine if I want to do in between the pickups. Don't know if we're really gonna reap a lot of benefits that way. So for me, I like to have a little knife that I do this with, and then also just some scissors because we're just cutting it into strips. So this is where the OCD kicks in, because what a lot of times as you start to do it, you want to make sure it's nice and clean, nice and tight on there. And those little wobbles, that's going to be next to impossible to do, but I'm okay with it. My first couple, I actually ended up pulling it up because I wasn't happy with what it looked like, which is ridiculous, I know. Keep that mic handy somewhere. Yeah, so then it's just a matter of trying to see what you want to do. So we're going to hit on the bottom and we're going to come in. So sometimes I'll actually like wrap it like this. So then because then you're kind of applying 3 different sides. And actually, I think that is what I'm going to do. We'll start on this edge. If I had a whole heap of people in here, I'd probably be like, okay, what do you guys want to see? But, well, it needs to get done, so I'm going to do it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. The other thing that you want to do, or the other thing that I like to do as well, is I just kind of see what the pickguard's going to cover. So obviously we know it's not going to go beyond these holes, and we don't need it to come the whole way out. We literally just needed to catch the lip. So again, I take a look at this, and there's like a little lip where it's not connecting. It only goes, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch along the outside. So if I'm getting it just over the lip in between the screw holes, I can see the screw holes are all connecting into here, then we'll be good. Because that means that it'll be nice and shielded. start on a clean side and see where that ledge is. Kind of roughly get it into place. Maybe about here. And then, yeah, you just peel the back off and away we go. Not the most exciting thing by any means, but what a world of difference this is. We should very much hear the difference on this, just because there's no shielding on the inside. And then it literally is like a tinfoil. It's you can kind of hear like that. It's like if you were to take the aluminum foil in your kitchen and just try sticking it. And actually, I've seen that. For all intensive purposes, it is the same stuff. I've seen people just grab balls of aluminum foil and put it on the inside of their guitar. And it works. It doesn't look great. Where this comes a little bit more handy is because it's actually an adhesive. It sticks to the guitar here. So I'm just seeing if that's the right distance. I think it is. Yeah. So I'm just starting it tight against the pickup, and then I'm just, as we go down, I'm just kind of pressing it, making it tight. And it's generally several different places, different pieces that you're putting in here. So the tape is fragile, so we don't want to like push it as hard and as tight as we can, because you are going to run into issues with it breaking, and you know, you poke your finger through because you're trying to get into a void. So right now, as I'm going over this bend, I'm just kind of lightly applying it from one side and kind of moving my way around the crack. And now I'm onto the bottom, and same thing, I'm just kind of squeegeeing it out. No different if you're putting like a screen protector on your phone or laptop or whatever. Yeah, and so I started a little too high, and my measurements are a little off because this is not going to come up the lip on this side, but that's okay. That just means I need to add another piece. Barely. Barely. Okay, let me see if I can hold this up, just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So, a little reflective, but you can see what's in here. So here's the first piece, yeah, it's obviously the lights are freaking out on top of the tinfoil, but here's the first piece, and we're just basically putting it in and lining it up in this groove, and basically we just work our way through the cavity. So it's, again, not the most exciting thing to watch, but it is a crucial thing, especially if you're running into ground noise. I would recommend doing this on all of your guitars. There is a reason why this is a little pricey to do, because it is quite time consuming, and then also making sure that it's all working as we make our way through, because that's another really common thing. Also, just as I'm looking at it, I got this little piece of scrap that I cut off right when I started, which is going to work great to carry that over the edge. So we'll just have to be a little heavier with the tape on the next one. So this is where I have another one of those speed up montages, but I don't have that. So all I'm going to do for this inside is just get down to the bottom. I don't need to run this the whole way, because it's going to get a little interesting underneath the pickup on this side. So I'm just going to run a little piece that just goes down into this. So kind of the same thing. And my corners actually are a little light, so that works really well. So we're probably going to be right around there. Sometimes, depending on what the cavity, if it's, you know, like a Les Paul, for example, nice square or something, it's a little bit easier, but I'll actually start from the bottom and work my way up versus from the edge kind of coming down. But whatever makes you happy. Whatever makes you happy. And sometimes you can kind of like roll it a little bit just to kind of give you the angle, and then you can open it up once you're inside. Generally, these little corners need a little bit of extra pieces because you can't get it perfect in there. So we're actually not too, it's actually not too bad. There is a small little section in here that we're gonna have to do, but I normally just kind of like remember that because we have more pieces. Obviously, we've got a little bit more of a guitar to do here. So, and this is where, like I said, this is where the OCD kicks in, because now we're actually trying to make sure that this is nice and clean and all the edges are sharp and all that kind of stuff. But there is also a point where you'll be here forever trying to make that absolutely flawless. Obviously, I try and do that as much as I can, but I'm also not gonna go nuts over it. Okay, so this I only need, this little scrap piece I only need from here, and quite frankly, that actually, I'm gonna need that. Okay, so I'm just gonna use this little scrap piece just in the corner here. The other thing I really dislike with this, the paint does it too. This is actually just black paint inside of this, but it gets all over your fingers. But yeah, that paint is, and I do know people that prefer that, and that's totally cool. I prefer not to use it, just because it's a real bitch working with. But it's this stuff here. You know, there's a whole bunch of different ones. This one's Humbuster, and you apply it by a brush. You have to wait 24 hours. You do a coat, and you come back and do another coat, and come back and do another coat, depending on, again, the cavity. And it's very messy, very sloppy. It's very easy to miss a spot, and you'll see in just a second what I'm about to do. But we want to make sure that we have a nice clean section kind of going on. So I just have to remember I have a little corner down here I have to fill in. But so now we've got 3 pieces. We did the first one, the one on the side, and this little guy. So now I'm just gonna have my multimeter on continuity, and I just want to hear that little beep. So I can do it from edges, so from edge to edge, and that way I know the inside is connecting. And then you can just randomly touch it all over the place. That's what we want. That's what we want to be seeing, because that's what's going to give us the continuity going all the way through, and that's what we want. It's no different from us adding all the ground on the top of the guitar. We want to do that on the inside of the guitar, because then we're going to have the ability to just carry that ground all the way out, and that's what's going to make the guitar quieter. Okay, so sounds a little bit easier. So we're just underneath this, and we are right about here. So what I normally do is I will overshoot the edges and then put the pickguard in, see kind of how it is, and then I'll come back with my little hobby knife. I also use the knife too, depending. This stuff actually is fairly easy, but I also use the knife to kind of get the sticky back off. Sometimes you need a little bit of help, but this stuff I'm happy with this. It certainly was not cheap, but it's very nice and easy to apply. Tight against the wall. Now I'm on the bottom, and then I'm just kind of pressing back and forth. An eraser works really well doing this too, like a pink eraser, because it really bends into the corners. Yeah, I'm actually having really good results with this, so of course I say that now, but so far so good. And again, we want this to be a shield. We don't want any pockets in there. So if you do your corners and you know, if you got your corner kind of doing one of these, and then we have the tape that's on this angle, you've got this little pocket where it can get into, and if that's open anywhere along the side, you're defeating the whole purpose of why we're doing this. So it does pay to be a little crazy in this state. This I actually, just because these are weird corners, I think what I'm gonna do is actually just do these into little strips. And we'll just do a couple of them. Again, the cool thing about this tape is that it's conductive on both sides, so as long as we're sticking that to the other side, we'll be groovy. Of course, I'm like, yeah, everything's going great. I don't need to use my knife. Now I can't get. It's all good. I gotta know where to go. If you have made it to this part, you are a trooper. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. As I kind of said off the top, you know, for me to set up a couple cameras, this obviously has been a bit to set it all up, but as far as me like kind of throwing it on, it's cool because I'm sitting here doing my work anyway. If I can hang out, that's cool. And I normally talk to myself anyway, so that's also cool. So we'll do another strip there. Actually, a little bit wider. That fine line of being a little heavy-handed with your cuts to give you the extra clearance, but also not wasting it because stuff ain't cheap. You know, use more, but use it less. Use it conservatively. A little, that's okay. I say it's a little too short, but I've got another piece around the other side here that I can cover that up. And then I got one more piece, and then that is this little section. So again, this is, you ever wonder why people charge a lot? The materials are not cheap, and it's a lot of labor to make this work successfully. But at the end of the day, it's totally worth it because it will make this guitar hopefully whisper quiet. And then every time that my client's playing this guitar, he's gonna remember, man, that guy. What a guy. I have more work for him. And that's how it works. You take the extra little bit of time and make sure you're doing a good job, and sounds like business advice. Okay, so I need a little section in here, but what I'm gonna do is I just wanna see what's gonna happen in here because the tinfoil cuts out, yeah, the tinfoil is cutting out in this section. So the tinfoil actually is not going through this stuff. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, again, I'm no electronics wizard, but it's typically in the pots and stuff. That's why when you touch them, That's actually a great way of knowing if you have ground noise, is when you're playing your guitar and you put your hands on the strings. That typically means that your bridge isn't grounded. But also when you put your hands on a pot and then all of a sudden the buzzing goes away, that's telling you that the guitar is not grounded. So this is going to fix that, because when the two sides match, it's creating this nice little shielded box, and again, carrying that out. So I can always add another little piece there, but I think I'm going to forego that, because the wires are sitting in here. And their wires are sitting there. Because it's not on any of that either. Phone is going off here. Clients coming into town. Cool. Hey, while I'm in town, is it cool if I give you my stuff? Yep. Yep, that's what I need. More stuff. All right, so that's the first side. Again, I'm just throwing this felt down just because I don't want to scratch anything. Because that makes me a nice guy. So in these cases, because this is all sorts of different cavities, I mean, at the end of the day, you just need to cover it in tape. So you can do whatever you want. But I like to go this way and just kind of keep it coming rather than use a long section. If it's like a big, long cavity, sure. But that seems like a waste because you're not going to be able to get that all in. I've also seen another thing is you can also go with like the tape like sideways. So you can do this sideways all the way around, and then you just have to fill in the middle. That's another way you could go. Actually, now that I say that actually might not be a bad idea either. Mainly because we've got these big curves. So if we're going this way, we can actually get into those curves, and then we just have to do the bottom to match up into it. Let me just think about that real quick. Because this is going to do all these individual cuts. If we go all the way around, I'm going to have to do all that anyway. Okay, so hypothetically that goes to there. It's going to do this, and then this. Yeah. I think we'll do a hybrid. Whew, made it through that one. That was a close call. We almost didn't make it through that. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is block the camera, but I'm going to do this one underneath the pickup cavity because it's a little dicey. When I say that, I just mean I'm going to be bending over the camera here. So, and it's going to be going to about there. Now you're going to cut on an angle. Look at that. Look at that. So yeah, this is the part where I'm saying I normally do talk to myself. So this isn't me turning something on because cameras are on. This is actually what I do, especially on the night shift. It's been a day, which it has. It's been a lot of client meetings today and some pickups and so forth. All right, there's the first section. Actually, I'm gonna try that corner thing here I'm kind of talking about. So we're gonna do it. Just like this. There we go. All right. Not bad, not bad. And so on these ones, it's not necessarily the end of the world, like up top, because we're out of the cavity. So I'll just generally snip the corners a little bit. And that allows me to bend it. Just gotta be obviously careful. We don't want to rip all the way down the side because again, then it's not a closed circuit, so to speak. Cool. Now we just need a little bit on the little strip. Really like that. I assume fast forward this would look, and I hyperlapse this would look much better than what it currently does. Just don't work that fast, okay? And I need another little section, but I have a feeling we'll have that in scraps. Just a tiny little corner on the bottom here. Actually, so that's going all the way up into the pick hole. So yeah, actually, we'll leave this. That on, and then we'll have just a little bit to take off. That's okay. Okay, so on to the next one. Funny. The other thing is too is, like I said, speaking as a slight OCDist, trying to make this absolutely perfect and super clean and stuff. You're like, yes, it looks great, and everyone loves the look of it. But at the end of all that, you're about to put a pickguard and strings. And everyone is not going to be listening for your foil on the inside. You know, they're not going to be listening for the shield. I mean, I say that as they would notice if your guitar is picking up radio stations, but I mean, like, people are going to be like, "Oh man, your guitar, the shielding, it sounds so on point, super sync." Like, no one cares. So I kind of stopped doing that. It still looks nice. You still look at it, and there's nice clean lines and stuff. And I'll come back and clean all these edges up. This is just to get it in. And then I have just this little lip that comes along the edge. At least most of it. I don't necessarily seal the whole thing in, but we'll grab just a little strip because some of this is coming up just a little short and stuff. That's totally fine. You know what? I think on this, I'm actually going to grab that. I think that's going to be a cleaner. I think that's going to be a much cleaner way of doing it. I think we'll just kind of wrap it around here until like here. And then also, because this is just going to go up on the sides, I don't need all of this. So I think we'll just cut off like a little strip. And then that will give us our little patches that we need. There's one right here, and there's a little strip right here that we need. Okay, quite that much off. That'll do, donkey. So as we complete the shielding on this, it's always an exciting thing to start wrapping it up. I've done I don't even know my tally. I'm certainly actually no. I'm just kind of doing rough numbers in my head. I got to be approaching 10 grand if I'm not over that. 10,000 instruments that I've done over the span of not quite, getting close to that. Anyway, I lost my train of thought now. What was I saying? I don't remember my train of thought. This is the trick. Is trying to get it in there, trying to make it nice and clean, but then also see if I think this is a good idea or not. Oh yeah, that's gonna be much cleaner than doing the side to side thing. Yeah, okay, that's great decision, Jeff. Thank you, thank you. Okay, twisting a little bit too much. Don't break on me. Don't break on me. Oh no, don't be doing that. As I say that, now it's all falling apart on us. Using my knife to it's sticking to itself because naturally that's what you want. Just in this small little section I might be able to fix it. No. Yeah, that section's a little too tight to make that go on clean. Well, that is a little unfortunate. Just trying to get all cheeky with it, and it just. What if we just do this? Well, that wasn't as satisfying as I was hoping for. It's okay. We made our way through it. We did it. We did it. We got rid of the big twist. I can fix the next piece of tape. Yeah. We're good. We're good. It'll just be our little secret. Yeah. Okay. Whew, that was close. Thought I actually like wasted a whole piece of it. It would have been fine because I needed like patches and stuff, but that's of course what would have happened. Curse. All right. Well, that just became a patch. All right. It just ripped in my hands. So That's unfortunate, but roll this back a little bit. Just so that we have coverage. Okay, so I can cut this part out. And that will be a patch. I will need it in some sort of curve, I know. I know I've said it 30 times, but the really cool thing is about this tape is that it is conductive on both sides. A lot of tapes that's out on the market, it is actually just the top. So if you are overlapping, so that's what I'm doing. I'm putting a piece down, overlapping it, and basically it's just keeping that continuity going all the way along the guitar. But there are tapes out there from some pretty distinguished part sales. I'll leave it at that. But it actually is, it's garbage because it doesn't do, but it also depends on what you're trying to do, like what you need to do with the foil. But 9 times out of 10, people are doing this. They're actually creating this little strip that they need in there, so. All right, well, we might as well, I guess, considering this is a nice straight run, we might as well go this way. I was trying to do that originally. We'll go up to, actually we can go the whole way. Why not? Let's live. Let's live dangerously, eh? So that will be our strip that goes all the way along the other side. And then got kind of the same thing there. We're taking this strip off edge. Not a ton, but enough. Yep, that works. That works for I. And then here we're going to come down, and now what we're doing is creating the little cavity around all the wiring coming out. Just kind of snipping on the other side, and then I'll match those two lines up. And now I have this, basically this little L. It's kind of difficult to see because it's reflection. Let's go this way. So now I have this little L on this end, which is actually going to go underneath the wiring and the pickup. So I'm going to start on that end, and then we'll work our way back. Normally, when I'm doing things like this is a very time, as you will know. This is a very time intensive task. So on a lot of jobs like this, oh, that was like practically perfect. Holy, that worked out really well. A lot of jobs like this, these like kind of like menial tasks, I actually will have a timer going, and then I just kind of, I don't have, it's like, whoa, it's $20 to shield your guitar, because every guitar is different. Some are really easy, some are not. This one's a little bit towards the not, just because it's getting a little cramped in here. And because of how much electronics is in here, so we just have to obviously use a lot more tape, but then also, which turned laborious because now we have more to apply. But So I don't go crazy and stick this to the top. I do along the edge, but because we're gonna put the pickguard on, we're gonna have to see, we're almost there, and then we'll see what we need to actually cut out. So I got a couple little pieces here. I know I have to do a section up here, which actually, that's probably gonna cut it for us. Really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to accomplish is to get this lip. And now we've totally enclosed this electronics cavity. And hopefully, we've done a good enough job. It doesn't make any noise. And it was making noise without strings too, so it's not like we need to string this up before we can see it, which also was kind of nice. So we can... So a lot of times I'll actually do what I just did on that one. Yeah, it's really reflective, sorry. But I'll actually do a nice clean line on the top and then just bend it into the cavity, because again, you don't really notice the difference there. But I have just this little strip here, but I'm gonna wait on that, that's okay. Actually, I changed my mind. When you're a hobbyist doing this on your own guitar, I mean, this stuff, when I say this stuff isn't cheap, I'm meaning like this entire roll, this is definitely not something that the average person needs, just because of how big this roll is when you get it. But it certainly is a good thing to do, especially like in your Strats or in, well, really any guitar. But there is that typical single coil noise that you are expected to get when you have your guitar, but it is one of those things where, yeah, buying a roll, and there, you know, you can buy this kind of anywhere online. There's a lot of shops. I'm sure Amazon probably has it, and you can pull that up, and it gives you a much different thing. And as far as time and money and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of irrelevant, because obviously it's your guitar and this is your hobby. Or it's your business. Sorry, I don't mean that you're a hobbyist guitar player. I just mean, like, it's not the end of the world if you spend an afternoon with a pot of coffee changing your pots in your guitar and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I miss those days. Now I just never sleep. I'm always fixing guitars. So this is where things are going to get a little interesting, is because there's bends and small areas, and now it's getting tapered as we come up. So this is why I'm saying, like, I'm over the, oh, it has to look absolutely beautiful. Obviously I'm going to make it as clean and as tight as I can, but I'm not going to go crazy, because there's almost no way to achieve a little close. That was close, but it's okay. We're good. We're good. Now the next section. We are almost done shielding this, and then we can put the pickguard on. Like I said, we should be able to hear this even without strings. We'll just be able to hear if there was any hum. I should have looked at a timestamp. Just as far as like, okay, go back to X minute and hear the before. But like I said, I'm kind of excited to do that after this and see if I can actually hear a difference. on the grounding as well as the pots. So we just wrapped it up. If you're just joining us, we are just finishing changing these pots. They were 1 meg pots in this Jazzmaster, and we are now at 250. Client complaint was that it wasn't, it was just way too bright and way too shrill, which makes sense. That's what a 1K pot's gonna do to you. And so we wanted to go a little bit darker, so we've done that. Changed the cap out. It's an orange sprayed cap now, so already there's a very noticeable tone difference that I'm hearing. And then also this one is normally strung with flat wounds, which will also make a substantial difference to your tone. It's a little thuddier than your average round wound string. Commonly done in like jazz, but doesn't mean you have to be a jazz player to play round rounds. I actually really like flat wounds on, sorry, doesn't mean you have to play flat wounds. I really like flat wounds on a bass. I'm a guitar player, but when I play bass, the round wounds are just too big, and I don't like the feel, I don't like the sound. I'm a really big, like, James Jamerson kind of thump bass kind of tone, regardless of what it is that I'm doing. If I'm doing top 40 or jazz or country, I don't care. I like that thumpy kind of sound, so. And that's another great way of changing the tone of your guitar dramatically, is obviously the type of string, but the structure of the string. All right, we got our last little section. Kind of a weird one. I don't really know how we're gonna do that, so let's kind of do a big patch and hope for the best. You also may have noticed that I haven't been testing continuity as we go. I like to do it kind of in sections, and then that way I can just see which piece is bad. If I start here and go to the end, and it doesn't beep at me, I don't, we've done a couple pieces, I don't know which one it's gonna be. But I have faith. I have a feeling we'll be just fine. So the other thing that's worth mentioning, you know, a good reason to go really nice and clean with this stuff as well, especially when you have open wiring, perhaps you have a lot of wiring, perhaps you have extra parts in there that you wouldn't normally have, such as push-pull pots. When you have this, because now this is conductive. So if you've got a push-pull pot that's sitting out on the bottom, and you got, you know, it's a big, it comes out quite a bit longer, and you've got volume pots, and then you've got your ground wire and all that kind of stuff, and when you cram this all back in here, it's actually touching the bottom. You are actually now grounding your electronics. So just one thing to kind of be aware of when you're doing that. Actually, I can probably get away with a little patch here, I think. Throw 2 little patches in there and I think we'll be good. I really hope this makes a difference in sound. This is definitely taking a while. And all of a sudden we put it all together and yeah, it's gonna be super quiet, and then it's still buzzing like crazy. This is when this guitar, I throw this guitar across the shop. Obviously I'm kidding, but internally I'm not. Well, this will be the test. What do you think? You think this is gonna work? I think this is going to work. Now, the only thing I'm not too sure on, and we'll have to just see, is in between the pickups here. See if that makes a difference or not. So what we'll do is we'll turn our continuity on our multimeter. Okay, so I'm going to go from edge to edge. Aha! We are good. That means that every part in the middle is conductive, which is what we're looking for. Cool. All right, so we kind of just mock this up as we normally would. And yeah, we did snip that cable tie on the inside, so I will tie that back up. I just want to make sure this is all sounding neat before we do that. So all I'm going to do is basically close this box. I'm going to kind of just sit this in, get all the wires over the stop. It's another one of my least favorite things about Jags and Jazz Masters is just all the wires. Strats are bad enough. Oh yeah, this is loose and it was resting up against the ground, so that's not good for anything. Sometimes we have to go back. I'm looking at some of these caps, actually. The caps on these tone wheels they've got really long leads on them. But I think it's gonna be okay. I think we can sneak it in there. But obviously if that's resting against this cabling, you're just short-circuiting everything now. Which obviously is not quite what we're attempting to do. I've been told patience is a virtue. Doesn't mean I want to say things. Cable, something happened to that cable. One like tight end. All right, cool. All right, so what cable is it? It's this one. This one is actually acting up on us. So I'm still doing them just finger tight, but I am just tightening up those pots a little bit. A little too loosey. A little too loosey-goosey. Again, our volume pot, our output jack is dangerously close to shorting out too, so we got to be careful of that. I mean, I guess the plus side is it makes our guitar really quiet. Maybe not quite what we had envisioned though, but holy. What are we stuck on? Okay, so we have a little bit of cables underneath. I'm not terribly worried about that because obviously we're not done. I just want to see that everything's working on this. So we're going to bring this down because we have to feel it, to feel the moment. Now, potentially, two things. Actually, what I am going to do, just because I'm curious, I'm just going to touch the lug and this little piece of copper that's coming out, which is ideal. I'm on the wrong setting. So you see what I'm doing? I'm actually touching, that one is just covering this up, but I'm actually seeing that we are connecting the ground to the ground, which is what we're looking for. And that's where that connection comes through. We're kind of shielding this, but here we're carrying the ground out. So that's where I'm saying we might need to actually transfer this out. Some guitars you don't need it. I don't know why that is. Like I said, I'm no electronics expert, but I'm just using my ears. But let's see if this is quiet now. Sure isn't. Okay. I can hear that in my headphones. I'm sure you can hear that too. So that's the other thing not to be deceived on. So when you unplug it, we are still getting ground noise on its own. That's the characteristics of the amp. So there is obviously going to be some cable noise. It doesn't increase where it did before. And when we actually press it down, the buzz goes away, which is what we want. So this one should be up. So the guitar itself is actually quiet. That ground noise, what we're listening to, it's just been unplugged. You can still hear it. So that actually is that's a good sign. So what we're gonna do is just clean this up. Oh shoot, the other thing I should have done while I was looking at all that is see where our wiring is coming out. Or not our wiring, our the shielding. Can't mute that. Where does that go? All right. So there goes the yacht. Kind of tuck that in underneath, and that goes through, and then all of this was a bit of a thing here too. This makes it a little bit easier to kind of cram this whole section in rather than actually that should work. So not only is it easier to get it into the cavity, but also these cables won't move around. Nothing in here is exposed, which is nice. But again, with all of this essentially grounding running through the cavity, if you've got a loose, like a bare wire, and it's just kind of rattling around in there, there's a chance that you pull it up somewhere at your show or at home or in the studio or whatever, and it either will just short your signal entirely, so now you have nothing happening, or we have... or it's going to like shriek or whatever. So I think we should be okay there. So let's quickly kind of just throw this on top and see what I need to clean up. I think this section right here this section right here. I know those two for sure. Do this more. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do this more. Yep. Right. Yep. 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 Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm enjoying our time together. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's very close to the wall. That's not actually even remotely close to what we want. All right. So here where I go very gingerly with my knife and just kind of come in a little bit on it. I just poke the end, which is also another reason to why I don't stick it to the body, because then it comes off actually quite easily. Bots are out tonight. Okay, so we got a little bit more on this side. Just kind of cleaning up the shielding tape coming off the edge. So a lot of times what I'll also do as well is kind of do this as like a border. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So I grab these pieces that are sticking out, and then see that line there. And then I essentially know what is kind of my extension. The first part is removing all of the pieces that outside of the pickguard. And then to kind of give me like a nice little border or whatever, I will try and just run this as a nice clean line. It's as much as I can rather than all these like square parts. So I am cleaning it up a little bit, but it's effective, but also nice to look at. So trim this back just a touch, even though it does go. Actually, no, that one goes the whole way, right? Where are we? That's going. Oh no, not really, but whatever. Trying to make this kind of a nice clean line, but because all we're really trying to accomplish is to get the shielding out of this, which it is. There's this nice little lip that will sit on the lip of this, and now it totally shields that. I think I got it all on this side. As far as what I'm looking at, yeah, for the most part. Cool. Because that's a little close to the end. Same kind of. Yeah, so I don't go crazy with this, but I'm just trying to have kind of a similar lip along the outside edge. So if the next person that takes this pickguard off, oh, that looks nice, rather than just kind of random botches everywhere, but to each their own. go. Cool. So now we can tighten these up, and that should be that. These soft pliers are great. I also use a wrench sometimes. I've got the thin wrenches, which work really well for that as well. So now we should be able to fully put this on. I don't know where it's better to start. Wow. How did... Okay, how come we couldn't do that the first time? Holy moly. What a difference that was. Flathead go. Get that wiring harness off the edge. It's like just barely. Really? All right. Getting a long flathead, just kind of poking the I might actually have to take that one. I think I actually have to take one cable out of this loom. You can see how tight. You can see this cross here. So that's what I'll do. I will reloom it, but we'll just take that one out and a little annoying. Also that we can get that little distance. Honestly, that would almost be worth just rerunning a new wire, but it's just because the hump of the cavity, like in between the pickups, this is what this one's getting caught on. There's a big block on the inside. So I think that should give us the clearance we need. Better be. Try that again. Generally on these jobs you get really good towards the end of it. have to keep fighting with it to get it in the first place. But yeah, that did the trick. Come on. I can feel it ballooning up. Holy. All right, enough of this. Turning my gun on. This is ridiculous. What is it connecting to over here? So it's ground on either end is what it is. So what we're gonna do is just run a new ground wire. We're just gonna make that longer, just be done with it. I'm tired of fighting with it. It's the right thing to do. Because the other thing is too, is like, it is incredibly tight. Like there is a block that it's getting caught on. It's this piece right here. So the wire is supposed to be coming around this corner and it's like just barely doing it. So if any sort of movement happens, now you're gonna start ripping that cable out. So it's gonna come back to me, or might not even come back to me. But it's one of those things where now all of a sudden we've got an angry client. I don't want that. So I'll spend 30 seconds, rather than the 5 minutes I've been fighting with it, I'll spend 30 seconds just run a new ground wire and all will be well. So that is... Oh, that's a connection there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, hold this a little cheeky. Because now I'm like rewiring the whole thing, which I would like to not have to do. Or you know what I'm gonna do? Maybe. That is the ground to that, right? So we're gonna leave the other side of that. No, we're just gonna rerun it. That's what we're gonna do. So and we'll just make it longer than what this currently is. Like I said, I was gonna be cheeky on it, but I decided against that. As this is heating up, this is sometimes the annoying part. You know, you're so close to the end, and then this is where people sometimes will take the cheap and easy way out, or like this. Honestly, with the exception of heating up the gun, it's going to take me a minute to fix. And just get a bigger, longer, a longer ground wire than having to do, you know, fight with it and try and cram it in there and so forth. So I don't want to be burning any wires though. Ooh. Yeah, stay away from that. Don't be breathing that stuff in. melt my camera? No, I think we're okay. All right. See if I can get it under there. I might be able to. Again, not the end of the world. I can just run a new zap, but if I can squeak it in under there, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, sure can't. All right. Well, that's an awkward angle. Sometimes you have to do things on your offhand. For me, that's my left hand. No. Do this and then bend it back around. All right, so there's one end. I'll bend it back and around, get underneath this. Sorry, I'm blocking it. That was an awkward solder joint for sure. Now we run it to the back of the pot. Cool. There we are. And actually, you know what? I think I'm going to... No, I'll run on that first one. I was gonna say, I actually don't think I'm even gonna zap that ground just because it was so tight, but I added a fair amount of slack. But I think I'm just gonna do it in the one. Redo that one. Then that should be it. If not, I'm giving it back to him broken. That's it. I don't care. What are we looking at here? 10 to 12, eh? All right. Wire harness, input jack. Hey, look at that, the ground fits. I would say that was worthy cause. I think. Come on. Now what are you stuck on? Oh, I see. It's that cable. My least favorite things to do is like strap pick guards because there's so much wiring. These guys take the cake every single time. It's something very similar to this. So there we go. All right. I'm gonna be brave. I'm gonna be brave. We're just gonna go for it. This always gives me anxiety. Obviously I'm in the middle of a job and stuff, but I need a clean bench. I need to be able to see what I'm doing. This kind of stuff, like this is just paper, it's not a big deal, but like if you're doing something that's, I don't know, heavy parts or something that there's a good chance that you might pick one up, or as you're grabbing the strap to get out of the way, you throw a tool on top of the guitar, or I've seen a lot of that over my days. Never from me. I should clarify. Never from me. Because I've always been aware of that. It seems to be kind of funny, like, obviously this is what I do, so maybe I'm a little bit more prone to that. I don't know. I don't know what the secret is, but anything that can cause problems to a guitar, get it out. Just like that. Cool. Cool. All right, so we are going to throw these back in, and we're just gonna hope. We're just gonna hope. So a little secret that you can do, as I was kind of saying at the beginning when I was taking this all apart, one of the things that I will do, what are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of those things that you can do is actually when you're screwing it, and I do this every single time when I'm screwing something back into a guitar, is I will actually go in reverse, and then your threads will actually drop down. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure, but all of my so I go backwards, and then you'll feel it. It just drops into the slot, and now when you're tightening it, you know that you're not actually cross-threading it, which is kind of ideal. These types of guitars or whatever, like the newer ones, they shouldn't really have issues, but that certainly will come into play as you start working on vintage guitars. But typically I just kind of do that every single time I screw something in now, it seems. Doesn't hurt. Okay, so I'm not doing the whole thing. I just want to do basically connect this so that it's not kind of ballooning up. And I think we're okay. Oh no, let's do some on the side. So I'm trying to like actually basically, I mean, I guess in this case we are actually installing it, but normally I don't like to, this one's a little weird because there's so much wiring and stuff, so I might as well just do it now. A couple screws left. But normally I'll just kind of do the corners or whatever just to hold it in, just to see if we have, just to make sure that everything works before I tighten all these screws down. Because then we tighten it all down, we're like, oh, that actually didn't solve it. or whatever. Now I have to take all these screws out again. Hypothetically, of course, because that's not what's going to happen. I only got one left. Might as well just put it in. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. We took that extra minute and put the new ground wire in, and it's going to repay us right here. Here we go. Here we go. So we're going to... I hear ground noise. But that's because there's nothing connected. It went away. It went away. That's what you want. And we'll just make sure we have a signal, which we do. That's interesting. The thing that drives me crazy on these is that they're all generally wired differently. It's not these don't do the same thing on every single guitar, which is the most annoying thing as a tech. It's different when it's your guitar because you know what it does, but all right, well, that means that we do need to actually run the shielding across. And that will at least help. It's come down substantially, but what's happening, that's why it's out in bridge, is because the two are in the middle position, is because the two of them are coming in and out. And this section is not isolated with the rest of this, which is, this is the little strip, and then this is all together. That's why you can hear it when it kicks in. So now we've just activated. And then that's your typical kind of ground noise. And you can hear how it changes. So yeah, we need to just, that's actually really easy because all we have to do is just add a piece that goes across on the pickguard as well as underneath. But that will be the trick. So yeah, shielding, not the most exciting thing to do, but it makes a huge, huge difference, as you can tell. That already from where we were when we first started is a substantial difference. I mean, quite frankly, we probably could just leave that and he probably would be happy with it. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just have to kind of make your way through and troubleshoot, try and see which one works and see if you run into it. When you have all the different cavities together, that makes things obviously a little bit more work because we have to try and solve that. But all in all, quite happy with how that turned out. The pots are going to make a substantial difference, so that is not a high bright pot as what it was. So we went from the 1 megs and we went to 250. We added an orange spray cap, and we also added shielding. So I got a little bit more shielding to do. I'm just going to connect the 2 cavities, and then, which is just honestly is a piece of that goes across. So that is a pretty quick and easy thing to do, but we have to take all the screws off, obviously, to do that. And then we're gonna put some flat wounds. We're not doing any work to the rest of the guitar. He's happy with the setup, all that kind of stuff. Great, awesome. We will do all the electronics and send it back. I want to thank you for making your way through it and hanging out with me. It's always fun to be there. And as we continue, I'm very excited to have my first guest here in the shop on the bench. So my friend Marcus will be here on Thursday. We're probably going to do that about 1 o'clock, and we are going to do his pedal board live. Very similar to this, but perhaps with a little bit more, I don't know, hooligans or something. He's a great player, good friend and stuff, so I'm very excited to have that. So we will see you Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and until next time, just keep strumming.